Welcome to the All That Chaz Stress Relief Podcast.
Hi, I'm Chaz. Today on the podcast, I'm going to talk a little bit about microbiomes and cravings and an update on the wild diet. I'm going to talk a little bit about high-intensity interval training and how you can get in shape in less time than you ever thought. And then finally, I'm going to rant a little bit about bubbles. But first, a few things off the top. I do have a catchphrase contest. This podcast needs a catchphrase to end it. So give me your suggestions. The one I pick, I will send that contributor a free book, a paperback. And speaking of paperbacks, if you have a health concern, see your doctor. If you have concerns about stress management, pain management, time management, or energy management, then try my book, Do the Thing, by Robert Shute. And now on with the show. Microbiomes and cravings. As you know, if you've been following the podcast, I am on the Wild Diet, which is a book that was, I'd say, a nutrition plan rather than a diet, really. That's pretty much paleo with a few modifications. And I'm really loving it, and I'm having a lot of success with it. I actually haven't had my weigh-in yet today, so I don't have an update on that, but I do have other news. But what I wanted to talk about was some diets use a cheat day. Abel suggests a cheat meal, which actually makes more sense to me. And I had my first cheat meal in about 3 weeks last Sunday night. I went out with my family, and we went to a nice restaurant, and I was going to choose one thing, but I thought, I haven't had bread in 3 weeks, so I'll go for the burger. And it was good, but it wasn't as big a deal as I thought it would be. I had a Kaiser bun with it, and I guess from my reading, I understand that your microbiome changes. All the bacteria in your gut, they digest differently, and your cravings change. And so I ate it, and I thought I would savor the bread more, and I didn't. And I thought I'd savor the dessert more, and I had a chocolate brownie, and that was the most sugar I'd had in 3 weeks as well. And that wasn't such a big deal either. It really puts in stark relief what an addiction to sugar I had when I don't have it anymore. I talked a little about this more broadly. I have a blog. Of course, the site for the podcast is allthatchaz.com, but I also write sometimes at chazwrites.com. Chaz with 2 Z's, 2 Z's if you're nasty, in both cases. And if you want to check out that blog post at chazwrites.com, I mentioned that I'm doing more self-care. And one of the things, because I had been so sick, and I didn't realize how sick I was until I wasn't sick anymore. So some really lovely changes going on there. The other big news about the Wild Diet for me, and this is not apparently all that unusual, is I went to see my sleep specialist this week, and I have some weight to lose, and the sleep specialist was confident that I could get off my CPAP machine if I lost the weight, and all would be well. I have a quirk to my facial anatomy with the bones in my cheeks that if they came out a little bit, a millimeter or so more, I might not have sleep apnea. But what was a really cheery note for me was, one, when he said lose the weight, I now know how I'm going to do it effectively. And the Wild Diet is the way. It's great for me. The other thing that was such a great change was my blood pressure is down, and often people who go on the wild diet actually reduce or get off their blood pressure meds. Because I have borderline hypertension. I have for a while. For years I had 120 over 80, 120 over 80, 120 over 80, and it was just textbook. That was great. And then they moved the goalpost back, and the specialists in blood pressure decided that that was pre-hypertensive. So they wanted to make sure that people had less blood pressure than 120 over 80, when previously that was a standard. So I felt cheated and annoyed by that. But hey, when I got my blood pressure checked at the sleep specialist, the nurse kind of went, "Oh, that's good. That's good pressure." And it's normalizing. It's down 10 points diastolic and systolic. So I'm confident that, I'm only a month in now. Who knows how much more improvement I can make just with the dietary changes alone. That's without losing a ton of weight so far. So overall, some great changes happening there, and I'll give you an update on my change in weight next time. One of the things that's going to help get me there, besides the dietary component, as Tim Ferriss says, pounds are lost in the kitchen, ounces are lost in the gym. But you don't have to spend as much time in the gym as you think you do. In fact, you don't have to go to a gym at all. There's lots of ways to get exercise. But the great news this week is that it may take you a whole lot less time than you think it does. You don't have to be jogging for hours, pounding the pavement for hours. It doesn't have to be an endurance thing where you're on a treadmill forever. And I listened to a podcast. It was a Quirks and Quarks podcast on how 1 minute of exercise can help you maintain your health, which is pretty extreme. I thought, okay, that sounds pretty gimmicky. Like, what's next? Lose all the weight in 30 seconds, get healthy in 20 seconds. Well, don't be a sucker. You can do it all in 10 seconds. But there actually is some serious science behind high intensity interval training, and it keeps your cells young. It boosts your mitochondria. This is about influencing telomere length. I was listening to a couple podcasts on the subject, but to get the most scientific explanation and the get all the details on it, what you need to do is check out the link in the show notes at allthatchaz.com. But the summary is, if you go hard for 20 to 30 seconds, then back off, and then go hard, and then back off, so you achieve a point where you are working not necessarily to exhaustion, but you're certainly working hard, and then you recover. And after a few cycles of that, you've achieved what you're going to achieve, and then after that, the law of diminishing returns kicks in. So this is really great news for people who are pressed for time. So certainly, as an exercise strategy, it's important to know that you can exercise very effectively and efficiently. As a time management strategy, it's great, because a lot of people, when they think about, I don't have time to exercise, turns out you really do. And my way of squeezing exercise in has usually been to use cues, which is, a commercial's on, you can stretch, or you get to watch your favorite TV show if you are on the stepper as well. And that doesn't have to be an expensive elliptical. It can be a block of wood or a plastic step in front of your TV. But there's a lot you can do in a short time, and it's just how you do it. And it doesn't take a ton of time to achieve optimum results. But it does mean that you have to work hard for a very short time. So you can work out long or you can work out hard, but you can't do both. And it turns out the good news is you don't have to work out long. And you don't even have to work all that hard for very long. It's, you can do anything for 20 seconds. You can, it's just I find that when I work out this way, yes, I'm working hard, but because it's for such a short duration, I don't take it as all that laborious. Like it's kind of a neat challenge to go hard for 20 seconds and then back off for 20 seconds and do several cycles of that. And it feels great to get that high intensity interval training in, and then I'm done and I'm leaving the gym. I'm off the treadmill. Whereas someone who's beside me for a slow, steady pace, they're committed to the next 45 minutes to an hour. I've always thought that if you are spending hours in the gym, you're wasting your time. You're not working hard enough while you're there, and it's there's lots of variability with interval training too, because depending on your condition, you may be starting off with going from a slow walk to a faster walk. In any case, according to Abel James, the idea is, sweat every day, get out there and get some exercise. But depending on where you're starting at, you can adapt the philosophy of interval training to whatever your level of fitness is, and then improve from there. So I encourage you to check out the full details on the Quirks and Quarks podcast, and as I say, the link is in the show notes. And now we we come to the rant part of the podcast, and I was more stressed and angry about this earlier in the week, and first we have to talk about that briefly. And that is, I know a lot about stress management, and sometimes it takes a lot of skill to manage your stress, and you're not always going to succeed. And part of it is you just need some time. So something happened earlier this week that really annoyed me. I can speak generally, I guess. I can't go into details. What I can say is someone attended my clinic this week, and she had what she thought was a simple complaint and a request. She wanted me to work on her leg. She had calf pain. And I did the standard orthopedic tests for that condition. And a lot of times people come in with Achilles tendon strains, or they'll pull the muscle in their calf, or they'll have a hamstring pull, and working with them to decrease that pain and optimize things, not a big deal. However, the testing revealed that she had a red flag. She was contraindicated for treatment, and I could not treat her. She was a new patient. She'd never seen me before, and she just wanted to get that taken care of that day. She was under a lot of stress, and she was in a lot of pain. And unfortunately, I had to refuse treatment and say, please go to urgent care. So the concern is that she might have had deep vein thrombosis. I don't know whether she did or not, and I told her up front, I don't know whether you have deep vein thrombosis or not. However, it is a potentially fatal condition. I didn't go into all the details because I didn't really want to freak her out. All I could say was, please go to urgent care. I can't treat you today. And then she gave me some pushback. She really wanted to get it treated. Somebody else had treated her a year ago. She'd had it checked out a year ago when she had similar pain, and everything was fine. Well, you can't assume that everything's fine. A deep vein thrombosis killed Heavy D. Remember Heavy D? I loved Heavy D. I wish you a peaceful journey, Heavy D, wherever you are. He died. He went on a long plane trip, and he died of deep vein thrombosis through a clot. Anyway, the details of the interaction I don't suppose matter so much. I just wanted to give you some context for why this was just disappointing for her and frustrating for me, because she pushed back pretty hard and she left in a huff. She was angry with me. And I might have saved her life. So the rant is not about her. The rant, and I'm not going to devolve into too much of a rant, but what I can say is what this elucidated for me is how often it doesn't matter if you're right. You know, I tried to communicate love and care. I chose my words very carefully. I said, you know, you really need to get this checked out, all this stuff. And it turns out that even when death is on the line, if you're not doing what somebody expects you to do, then there's a good chance they'll be angry with you. If you're not saying what they want you to say, they'll be angry with you. And it's really frustrating when you're so sure you're right and it doesn't matter. And the thing is, we all experience this. If you're on Facebook, you see this all the time. If you have a YouTube channel, then there's undoubtedly you'll find monsters in the comments on YouTube. It's a crazy world out there, particularly when you look at political posts. That's the main thing. I mean, what did we talk about before Donald Trump came into our lives? I can't remember, because it's so all-consuming. It's everywhere. And people argue, and this is the thing. Reasonable people can disagree, but unreasonable people disagree more often. And it turns out that you can't use a rational argument on irrational people. I know the cliche is, you know, we can disagree without being disagreeable. That's a good ideal, but we don't see that a lot in practice. What we see a lot in practice is you'll agree that I'm a genius as long as I agree with you. If I'm echoing what you're saying, then you'll agree, then everybody's happy. But the moment I say anything that ticks you off even in the slightest for any reason, then I'm an idiot. And there's not a whole lot of gray in that equation, right? It's black and white. I'm right, you're wrong, etc. And we have these camps, you know. It's tribalism. We're so committed to our beliefs, and this is the thing. If somebody doesn't want to change their mind about anything, then don't waste your time. It's not worth the stress. Now, here's where I expect the pushback. What about standing on your principles? What about arguing for the right thing? What about fighting the good fight? Well, I would like to illustrate this with a very concrete example. And it's going to be the political one. The Democrats in the States were devastated in the last election. They have no control over the government. There is the resistance, but you know they don't have the numbers in any part of the U.S. government. The Republicans are in full control, and a friend of mine was very frustrated with this, and she said, "Okay, that's it. I'm running for office." And I said, what the Democrats, what I hear a lot from Democrats is a commitment to failure. And liberals lose arguments for some really basic reasons. One is there's more nuance there. They'll say, well, maybe this, maybe no, where Republicans stick on message. They don't tolerate a whole lot of nuance, and they typically stay on message very, very well, whatever their message is. Whereas Democrats argue among themselves too much, and they can often make the perfect the enemy of the good. And what I see a lot in media is the Democratic Party is being dragged to the right, where they're still chasing really die-hard Republicans, people who are not open to changing their minds. And what I told my friend was, when you run for office, and if you're going as a Democrat, then you need to let the left be the left and go for the young and energized and interested crowd, the people who could actually change the election. And that would also have to that would require a big change in Democratic policy, because the mainstream of the Democrats is not particularly progressive. They said that Bernie wasn't a real Democrat, and given the ideals he was fighting for, and the way the Democratic Party is right now, I guess that's the case. So my point was, go for that young, energized base, the young voters. This time, get them out to vote, and I think in the next election, in the primaries, in the midterm elections, we'll see that those people are more motivated than they were before, because elections have consequences, and the left is not happy with Donald Trump. It's very clear from the polls, and there's a lot of people, even in the GOP, who are not happy with Donald Trump, although they're still backing him. So my point to my friend was, don't get dragged into chasing those voters who have made up their mind and won't change their minds. Those people who are still defending Donald Trump. And I use this example because I have another podcast that really backs up this experience that you can see for yourself. It's called Serious Inquiries Only. And I have a list in the show notes, again, at allthatchaz.com. Go to the show page and you'll find it. There's a fascinating discussion where the host, whose name is Thomas, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his last name, he tries to have a honest and open and active listening discussion with a Trump supporter. And it is fascinating how the divide is so clear, and clearly nobody's changing their mind about anything. And I really admire the host for his effort to try to bridge the gap. And we often hear on social media, people are in their own echo chambers and they're all in their own bubbles, and they say that's a bad thing. From a stress management perspective, I'm pretty sure bubbles and echo chambers are a great thing, because, look, if Facebook is your living room where you want to have a discussion or talk over the fence with a neighbor, if you put it in that kind of folksy way where, this is your media diet, this is what you expose yourself to, I've unfriended somebody on social media because of their... it wasn't just their views, but the way they presented them. So if somebody uses the term libtard, for instance, I'm out. They're gone. If they question somebody's intelligence for their political choices, then they're gone. And I had this friend on Facebook who I never had a positive interaction with him, and every time he popped up on my Facebook for his sole use of Facebook was to object and say something rude. And then my other friends would get in an argument with him, and finally I just unfriended him without an explanation, because I didn't think that it would be profitable of my time. I could use my time to pursue it with him, because I didn't think I would change his mind. I didn't think I would change his tactics, because really that was all he seemed to think Facebook was for, was looking for arguments. And I didn't agree with his arguments. So rather than argue more, I ended it. And I found the decision a little stressful. And then as soon as I unfriended him, it was a relief, because I knew that I wouldn't have that toxicity and that negativity in my Facebook feed anymore. I wouldn't have to be exposed to that. And this is the great thing about echo chambers and bubbles, is that if you have beliefs and principles that you are committed to, just commit to them. Just believe them, and talk about those principles with people who are open to change. There was a startling statistic that came up on Serious Inquiries Only, where even people who say they are open to change, will only change their mind about 4% of the time when presented with facts. Often what happens is, if you assert something that is wrong and then someone corrects you with the new information that is factual, people tend to double down. They did some fascinating studies on this, and it was amazing how I can clearly show you something that you're saying is wrong, and you will double down. I saw it again this week in another venue where somebody was asserting something that was easily checkable, and it wasn't political or anything. It was a silly, really silly detail, because this person said, if you go to that clinic, then you can't choose your therapist. This is a chain massage therapy clinic. You just can't do that. And somebody said, well, actually, you can. That's not true. And then she came back with, well, I would agree with you, but I heard this from 3 different clients, so I know that it's true. And people said, look, I work there, and I can tell you that, no, your clients are mistaken. Maybe those people were booked for months at a time, because we have regulars there, but yes, you can book with a particular therapist. They're not assigned to you. And she came back with, do you assume that all your clients lie? And I was like, oh my God, it's on the website. It's right there. People, we've told you, go to the website, see for yourself. I work there. I can tell you, I work there. And what you're saying is not true. And it didn't matter. And so you can see from this confluence of events where I potentially saved somebody's life, and instead of getting a thanks, I'll get that checked out, no matter how kind and caring and communicative I was in that interaction, it was kind of a spit in the face for her to walk out really pissed off at me, because I wasn't doing the wrong thing. I thought, next time, murder massage. No, I won't do that. We've got rules. We got to follow them. And for her safety. And I emphasize that. But even when death is on the line, people will still disagree. And you have to allow them to disagree. We can't control other people. We can only control ourselves. We can only control our environments, and often we can't do that. But a lot of this anger and the stress, I think, comes from people who like to argue for the sake of arguing. They're addicted to drama, or feeling righteous feels good. Even as I condemn this person who was counterfactual about this detail on a website, I mean, really, who cares? Even if she's wrong, nobody died. Not a big deal. But I get a little dopamine release, I suppose, from being righteous about that. I'm right, she's wrong, it's demonstrable, I'm right about something, so I can feel good about myself. And that is the internet, isn't it? That cartoon of somebody is wrong on the internet, so I can't go to bed until it's all fixed. It's never going to be fixed. It's just focus on the people who are actually interested in a real dialogue, but do not waste your time on the others. Mark Twain's quote is, "It's easier to." Don't want to get this right. It's harder to convince someone that they've been fooled than it is to fool them in the first place. And if somebody's committed to what they're wrong about, it's not your that's one of my favorite attitudes about this issue is, what am I, the village idiot whisperer? You can tell people to go to Wikipedia. You can tell them to check their news sources. You can tell them to watch out for fake news, which is a tactic that's overblown, by the way. A lot of things that are called fake news aren't fake at all. And as soon as people started saying fake news in social media, I thought, watch out. They're going to use that against stuff that's real. So this is a stress management podcast. I experienced some stress this week. It wasn't that big a deal, although it did affect me. It did. I had a headache that night, and I wondered if it started as a tension headache, and it lasted for a few days too. And I wondered, how much of this has affected me. And I think we often underestimate the effect of stress. At one point, I was positive that I had cancer, and eventually it was diagnosed that I did not. But I had some symptoms that were worrying. But as soon as it was diagnostically determined, when I finally got the test done, and the right test, and it was for sure, no, Mr. Chute, you do not have cancer. We're absolutely sure. Then it was about 2 days, and almost all my symptoms disappeared after that. The pain was gone. The spasm was gone. Stress, it affects us. It affects us in huge ways. And I talked earlier about being effective and efficient with high-intensity interval training. You can save a lot of time if you do not get sucked into fruitless discussions with people who will not change their minds. No matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, if you're convinced you're right and nothing's going to change your attitude, then there's no sense arguing about something. And if the person on the other end of that discussion is not going to change their attitude in their mind, then don't waste your time. This is like the classic. I still have a landline. I got to get rid of it. My wife likes it, but I want to get rid of it. But it seems like the landline, the only thing that's good for is for people to call me up to try to sell me duct cleaning or some kind of coupon book, whatever, stuff that I don't want. These telemarketers will call up, and it seems they all follow the same script, the same tactic. I say no, thank you. they persist. I say, no, thank you. And then I go to hang up and they say, can I ask you just one question? And I think, how often does asking that one question, after I've said no twice and no thank you, and I'm polite about it, because working those call centers, that's a lousy job. But truly, how often does it work that somebody says, oh, you asked me that question of, why would I not like to save another $5 on my internet? And somebody says, oh, I said no twice, but now that you asked me that question, I go, I should reconsider. Why don't they just move on to the next person who's open? It's a numbers game. Just move on to the next person as fast as you can, because you want to get through the no's till you get to a yes. Do not belabor a no. And with that, this is the longest stress relief podcast that we've had so far, and I do want to keep these straight and simple. But this week I wanted to talk a little bit from the heart about how much stress we can save when we choose our discussions wisely, because life is too short to argue fruitlessly. I'm Robert Shute. Buy my book, Do the Thing. Help me out with Catchphrase Contest. You can get more rewards if you go to the Patreon page. You can find the link to the Patreon page at Become a Patron at allthatchaz.com. Chaz with 2 Z's, 2 Z's if you're nasty. Special thanks to R.F. Casey for his donation at Patreon. He's the first. Please don't make him be the last. Join him on the Patreon page. Don't forget the catchphrase contest, because I need to end this podcast with a cool catchphrase. Also, at allthatchaz.com, you can download a free book just for signing up on the newsletter. So try that out too. Thank you for listening to All That Chaz. I hope I helped you today. See you next week. Take care. Music for this podcast was Floating Cities by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. For your royalty-free music, go to Incompetech.com. And thank you to Kevin MacLeod.